And moving into the streets of London, I have my colleague Juliana Olainka to talk to us from our London studio. Good morning, Juliana. Well, the Bank of England has held its interest rates at a record low of 0.1% and, of course, warned that the coronavirus pandemic will push the UK economy towards its deepest recession on record. Are there plans by the bank to inject more stimulus into the economy?
Good morning, Chimeze. Well, yes, there are certainly plans to inject more money. More monetary support from the Bank of England will come over the next couple of months. Not so much now, although there were two of the Monetary Policy Committee members who voted to increase quantitative easing and asset buying by about 100 billion pounds. So far, it's at 200 billion pounds. Andrew Bailey, the governor of the Bank of England, he did, of course, have a stark warning. They predict and project that in Q2, the GDP of the UK could fall as much as 30%, which would be the deepest quarterly recession we've had on record. I think some analysts have gone back 300 years to see the economy fall so badly. Didn't really affect the markets, actually. The FTSE 100 opened by about 30 points higher, and sterling was up against the dollar by about 0.11%. And that's because Andrew Bailey did say he does think that the UK economy will bounce back a lot quicker than it did during the 2009 financial crisis. Whereas, of course, then it was the Bank of England that were bailing out households by cutting interest rates so they could pay off their mortgage and pay off their debts much quicker. Of course, what's happened this time around is that the government have come up with various schemes, and they really hailed that furlough scheme, which was the government supporting employers by paying and subsidising 80% of their wages, which will encourage businesses to keep going, encourage businesses to get people back into work. So they do suggest that next year the economy will bounce back and be quite higher. But of course, again, you know, over the past couple of weeks, we've had such grim reports. So this one was grim, but there was a little bit of a bright side, which is why we saw sterling gain on the euro and on the dollar.
Now, the Prime Minister will chair a meeting of his top team later today to discuss the lockdown restrictions. However, major announcements, of course, on any changes are not expected until Sunday. But what do people really want to hear from Mr. Johnson?
Well, it's 50-50, to be honest with you, Chimeze. It depends on where you stand in the COVID-19 era. There are some people in Britain that have got coronaphobia and do not want to go out of their house. In fact, I just saw trending on Twitter in the UK, keep the lockdown in place. Some people just think it's way too soon. There have been some officials in the Labour Party saying that we went into it too late and therefore we're about 3 or 4 weeks behind any other European country. And then, of course, there are others that are just desperate to get out. Today is the day where, as you said, Prime Minister Boris Johnson will chair that cabinet meeting with all important actors discussing just how these lockdown measures will be eased. There will be an easing. We know that for sure. Both Prime Minister Boris Johnson and all other senior cabinet officials that have been taking part in that daily coronavirus briefing, they have hinted that that will be the case. They will be asking councils and boroughs around the UK to drop that stay home message. And that's part of the problem. Some people think that the government's messaging on staying home was so strong, some people are just too scared to get out of their house. And even if they do allow some non-essential businesses to open, so we're expecting some cafes, bars and restaurants that perhaps have garden areas or outside space that they'll be able to open. They will only be successful if people feel safe enough to go out and buy from them. And one of the main reasons why Britain is so desperate to lift these measures is because they want the economy to kick. So, yes, again, it's 50-50. But I think the majority of people are just desperate to get some fresh air again. One of the other measures that we're expecting Prime Minister Boris Johnson to announce on Sunday is that people can exercise for as long as they want. So before, I believe you were only able to go out of your house for about an hour. Now you'll be able to go out for as long as you want, as long as you're keeping and maintaining that 2-metre social distance.
All right, we'll wait and see what he eventually does. And let's look at the M&A market. Mobile operator O2 and broadband giant Virgin Media plan to merge. What will this marriage mean for the UK's entertainment and telecoms industries?
Well, it's a massive marriage, and that will come to the tune of £31.4 billion or something like that. Yes, the owners of O2 and Virgin Group have come together and said that, yes, they want to do a 50-50 joint merger. This is expected to bring a much faster broadband here in Britain, as well as make it easier for the 5G network to start rolling out. O2 are already the biggest mobile network here in the UK. They have millions and millions of users, and we know that Virgin are really locked into broadband and networks and the television. Now, we're hoping that this is going to go forward because they did try to do this before, and the Competition and Markets Authority got involved. They're not expecting that this time. They believe that there's enough competition in the market for them just to help with 5G. We know that 5G has been so slow in rolling out into the UK, and the government are really keen on getting some areas that don't have great access to the internet to have this fantastic opportunity. So we're likely to see the deal take place next year if they manage to tick all of the boxes. And according to sources, this is going to bring about £10 billion worth of investment into the UK over the next 4 years. And of course, considering we are still going to be Brexiting Europe at the end of this year, this is exactly the investment that the British government are hoping for.
All right, Juliana, let's leave it at that. I'm sure you have more updates for us later in the day.